Everybody's smiling. Thank you for that. Pardon me. So with that call to order, are there any late items, Vicky?
There are no late items, Mr. Mayor.
All right, hearing none, could I have a mover to adopt the agenda? Councillor McBain, thank you. And Councillor Karen seconds. All those in favor? That motion is carried. Next up, we have adoption of the minutes of the special meeting held on January the 20th. Mover, please. Councillor Roberts, thank you. Councillor McGuire seconds. All those in favor? That motion is carried. Mover to adopt the minutes of the regular meeting of council held on March 10th. Councillor Cairns moves and Councillor Fox seconds. All those in favor? That motion is carried. And finally, could I have a mover to adopt the minutes of the Accessibility Advisory Committee held on January the 8th? Councillor McGuire, thank you. And Councillor Cairns seconds. All those in favor? That motion is carried. All right, first up tonight, we have first three readings of the 2025 to 2029 5-year financial plan bylaw. And the motion on the floor is exactly that the 5-year financial plan bylaw be read a first, second, and third time. Over, please. Councillor McGuire, thank you. Councillor Fox seconds. All right, discussion. Krista, over to you.
Great. Thank you, Mayor McCormick. Yes, this evening we are bringing forward the 2025 to 2029 5-year financial plan bylaw for council's consideration first three readings. This bylaw is a culmination of the budget decisions council has made over the last several months, starting back in November of 2024. And links to those budget meetings and the associated documents can be found on the Engage Kimberley website for public viewing. I won't go into great detail of all those decisions that have been made so far, but I will highlight a few items that's included in the financial plan. Some of the more significant items which influence the figures contained in the financial plan, primarily we've got the council's decision to increase property tax collection by 6.99% to fund operating fund expenditures in 2025. And two significant decisions made by council, or resolutions I should say, to as part of those operating fund expenditures were two new transfers to reserves. The first one, and by transferring to reserve, those funds are put towards the renewal of infrastructure. And so the first new reserve transfer is a dedicated 1.5% property tax increase. And in 2025, that amounts to $196,659. And the other transfer is related to the unbudgeted non-market assessment change. And just as a reminder, non-market assessment change is the amount of new property tax collection that comes primarily from new construction. In 2025, Kimberley added $59.3 million worth of non-market assessment change, resulting in $369,000, just over $369,000 in new tax revenue. As we already had included $100,000 in the budget to come from non-market change, the unbudgeted amount, which will be going to reserves in 2025, is $269,604. Also included in the financial plan is $776,000 worth of expenses related to fuels management. Not all of the work could be completed in 2024 due to unsuitable environment conditions. So as a result, these costs are being carried forward. But since they're fully funded from grant contributions, there's no impact to tax collection. And notably on Schedule A, you'll see significant amounts in years 1 through 4 under capital expenditures, grants, and borrowing proceeds, and as well as significant increases to debt principal payments and debt interest payments in years 4 and 5. And those are all the result of constructing the new wastewater treatment facility.
All right, just before you go any further, any questions or comments on any of that so far, Council? Covered in a fair amount of detail previously. Just thought I would ask. Go ahead, Krista.
Thank you. since our last budget meeting back on March 3rd, there were some changes that have come up. So those have also been included in the attached financial plan bylaw. Similarly with like the fuels management, all of these expenditures, the identified funding source is outside of property tax collection, so it doesn't impact that tax increase of 6.99%. So the first three of these changes are projects that are fully funded through grant contributions, and it includes the Kimberley Youth Action Network, which is being continued again through the 2025-2026 program year for a total of 60,000, but split 30,000 in 2025, 30,000 in 2026. It also includes Indigenous Engagement Requirements Funding Program for the implementation of Indigenous engagement components with the Emergency and Disaster Management Act, which amounts to 42,000 in 2025, as well as the Public Notification and Evacuation Route Planning under UBCM's Community Emergency Preparedness Fund, which will provide 40,000 in 2025. We've also since been notified that there will be some additional retirement costs incurred in 2025, totaling 39,710, which will be funded through the general operating surplus. And the final change is the increase related to the contribution towards the Kimberley Public Library of $6,727. The increase was approved by Council at the March 24th, 2025 meeting, and Council subsequently directed that that increase be funded by reducing contributions to reserves of the same amount in 2025. So in summary, we are recommending that Council give this bylaw first three readings, and of the bylaw, we'll anticipate to have it brought back for adoption at the April 28th regular Council meeting.
Great. Thank you, Krista. Council. Any further questions or comments? 5 months plus to kind of get here. I'm not sure how many meetings we've had in between. For those watching on our YouTube channel, all of our previous meetings and the content of those meetings are available for viewing. It is each one of the budget meetings would be identified as a special meeting of Kimberley Council. So you'll be able to kind of wade through and find the budget meetings fairly easily. All right. With that then, I will call the question. All those in favor of first three readings? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Next up, we have the first three readings of the City of Kimberley Parcel Tax Imposition Bylaw. Could I have a mover, please? Councilor McBain, thank you. And Councilor Fox seconds. All right, the Parcel Tax Imposition Bylaw. That sounds ominous. Could you explain exactly what that is?
Yes, thank you, Mayor McCormick. So the purpose of this bylaw is to set the parcel tax rate for 2025. The parcel tax was established to fund the operating deficit of the Aquatic Center. The deficit is the budgeted operating expense plus the annual debt payment, less the amount of anticipated revenue for the year. In 2025, the deficit is projected to be $1,077,481. As this calculation is based on budgeted figures, if the amount collected through the parcel tax is greater than what is needed, the excess goes into a designated parcel tax reserve to be applied against the following year's parcel tax rate. And that's in fact what we did for when setting the 2025 rate. There was a small surplus in 2024, which increased the reserve amount by $2,750, bringing the total reserve balance to $57,292. We were then able to apply this reserve balance against the 2025 anticipated deficit, which effectively reduced the parcel tax rate by $12.12. So based on this information, we are recommending that the parcel tax rate be increased to $215.73, which is $2 more than the rate set in 2024.
All right, thank you, Krista. So basically we are between the increased revenues that we're getting and some of the increased costs as the facility ages, we're breaking even on kind of where we're at with that subsidy, I think. Pardon me. We haven't seen too much movement up or down in that parcel tax over the last couple of years.
Right. And just another note on that, in 2025, the last debt payment will be made on the Aquatic Center. So it's anticipated that the parcel tax can be reduced by approximately $40 because of that removal of
The
that debt payment.
retirement of the debt.
Correct.
So yeah, I think it said here there's 186,000 left or 187,000 left to pay.
That's right.
So that was 20 years ago. So
Yes.
this is the 20th anniversary of the Aquatic Center. I think certainly through or since COVID, our usage of that facility has gone up significantly. It's getting a lot of really good news. Okay, council. Questions or comments? Call the question on first three readings. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. All right, and next up we have the City of Kimberley tax rates bylaw, again for consideration of first three readings. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor Cairns, thank you, and Councillor Roberts seconds. Go ahead, Krista.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mayor McCormick. Yes, this final bylaw is the 2025 tax rate bylaw. And the purpose is to set the 2025 tax rates for the municipality as well as the Regional District of East Kootenay and the Kootenay East Regional Hospital District. If we first look at the municipal tax rate, as mentioned in the financial plan discussion, council approved the increase of 6.99% across all property assessment classifications to fund the general operations of the city. If we take the 6.99% increase plus the non-market assessment change of the $369,000, the total municipal tax revenue budgeted to be collected in 2025 is just under $14.4 million. This is the amount needed to fund the city's general operating costs, plus contribution to reserves, plus debt repayment. So the 14.4 million collected in property taxes works out to be approximately 58% of total funding for the operating budget. The remainder of those costs are funded or collected through user fees, permits and licenses, parcel tax, and grants. Important to note that the property tax revenue does not fund the capital project budget. Those costs are primarily funded from transfers from reserves, grants, and borrowing proceeds. And it also doesn't fund the water, sewer, and solid waste. Those costs are collected through utility user fees. So Kimberley is unique in that a portion of the tax revenue is collected using a flat tax. This essentially means that every residential property in Kimberley pays a flat amount regardless of the property's assessed value. There is one rate for residential properties with improvements and another for vacant residential properties. And back at that November budget meeting, council directed that these remain unchanged from 2024. And those rates are $306 for an improved residential property and $386 for an unimproved residential property. In total, we expect to collect $1,369,130 in flat tax revenue this year, leaving just over $13 million to be funded through the variable tax rates, which are specified in this bylaw. So in addition to municipal taxes, the city also collects taxes for other agencies. Approximately 30% of the property tax bill is collected on behalf of these organizations, and the largest amounts being for the province for school taxes, and as well as the RDK for costs of the regional district and the Kootenay East Hospital District. These amounts are collected and subsequently paid to these agencies, so the city doesn't retain those funds. And while we don't set the rates for the school taxes, we are legislated to set the rates for the regional and hospital districts. And these are collected by using the annual budget requisitions provided by the RDK, which informs us of the amount of property tax the city is required to collect on their behalf. In 2025, the RDK requisition is $1,206,897, which is an 8.8% increase over 2024. And this amount includes Kimberly's contribution towards several services, with the most significant service being central solid waste at $753,000. It also goes towards other services such as general administration, E911 services, central emergency service, etc. The requisition for the hospital district in 2025 was $1,063,358, which is a 19.4% increase over the 2024 requisition. And this increase will help fund the new FW Green Home project in Cranbrook, which will be adding new long-term care beds for the region, and it will also help fund the new oncology and renal expansion project at the East Kootenay Regional Hospital. So the rates necessary to collect these requisitioned funds have also been specified in the attached bylaw. Once adopted, it will form the basis for billing property taxes in 2025.
Awesome. Thanks, Krista. So a couple of comments about the hospital district. So when the hospital district was formed back in, I guess it would have been the early 2000s, when the regional hospital was also put in place, there was very little activity, capital activity happening for the better part of 15 years. All of the money went into regionalizing the hospital, and the money that was spent was mostly facility upgrades at Fernie, Invermere, Golden, Creston. Those four hospitals, I guess, or those four health, health facilities. Kimberly, of course, the hospital was closed, so there was no further capital cost or investment that was going into the building here in Kimberly. So that went on for about, as I said, close to 15 years, and there were no increases whatsoever in any of the taxation for that hospital district because there were no expenses. As it turns out, that was not a wise decision to do because eventually things not only get old, but in the case of our regional hospital, expansion is required, population growth, additional local services and equipment and so on needed to be purchased for the hospital. And the way the funding model works is that the provincial government pays 60% of the capital cost, and the hospital district pays 40%. And that 40% comes from the taxation in the various municipalities. So while that percentage number looks awfully big, the percentages started from a really small number. And pardon me, as Krista mentioned, FW Green is basically going to double the capacity for those long-term care beds, is at this point in time, $150 million project. And the expansion for oncology and renal, if I remember correctly, is somewhere in the neighborhood of $58 to $65 million. So we are coming up now needing to fund these large capital projects without having the benefit of the contributions to reserves in the past. And so much of this is catching up to the requirement that's going to be needed to fund those capital improvements. Questions or comments, Council? Nicely laid out, Krista. Thank you very much. I will call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Okay, next up under new business, we have the alignment of the OCP and the zoning bylaws to housing needs. This has been in the works for a while, I believe, Troy, under some duress from the provincial government, I might add. However, we are getting to where we need to be, and staff are looking for some direction from council. And the motion on the floor is that council confirm direction to proceed with a housing-focused review and update the official community plan and zoning bylaws, prioritizing the areas as outlined in the staff report. Specifically, the housing needs report integration, policies affecting housing and commercial nodes and mixed-use developments, policies affecting home-based businesses and small-scale neighborhood-oriented commercial uses in residential areas, and finally, a review of development permit area guidelines. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor McBain, thank you, and Councillor Karen seconds. Take it away, Troy.
Yes, thank you, Mayor McCormick. I'm going to just do a brief introduction here, and then I'm going to hand this over to Justin Cook, our new senior planner, who will be leading this project for us. So yeah, I'm very pleased to, for some of you, reintroduce Justin and introduce to some of you Justin as our new senior planner. He worked with us previously in the planner position and then went to regional district for a couple of years, and we managed to attract him back. And thank you again to council for helping us with that restructuring of the department. And yeah, Justin will be, like I said, leading the charge here on this special long range planning project. And I'm going to pass it over to Justin to kind of give you the overview and what we have in store for that project.
Thank you for that introduction, Troy, and yeah, thank you, Mayor and Council. It's good to see you all again and be back in this room. It truly is exciting for me. So I'll get right into it, and I'm not going to go too far into details here. But if there are questions afterwards, I do welcome them. So yes, as the mayor outlined there, we are looking at bringing forward this for direction from Council to proceed on the official community plan and zoning amendments required through the Bill 44 provincial legislation that came down in 2023. This is the final piece of that sort of imminent aspects of that bill. The first two being the small scale housing zoning amendments that were realized back in June of 2024. And then the second piece being the interim housing needs report amendment that was received by council on December 9th in 2024. And this is now the process to integrate that housing needs report into our official community plan and subsequently zoning bylaws. In this case, they're going to be kind of happening in parallel. And that is largely due to the time constraints. So we do have until December 31st of this year, 2025, to have this fully implemented into the OCP and zoning bylaws. So with that constrained timeline, we are looking at doing an official community plan update that typically would be a more comprehensive process, but typically those more comprehensive processes take anywhere from 18 to 24 months. We simply don't have that time to accommodate that more fulsome review, but we still do need to get this implemented. And with that understanding that we are going to be opening up the OCP and zoning bylaws, we do want to take a look at some of the housing related process policies that we are required to be looking at regardless. So the first steps are going to be really getting out and doing that initial round of community engagement. We do need to engage with the public, hear where the public is at with a lot of the different housing aspects that they're experiencing, where we might be able to improve, what things might have changed. And we do want to take a look at a few of the different housing adjacent policies, like I've said. So one of those being the commercial nodes and mixed use developments. So that's looking at places like the Plattsville, places like I'm going to just use Save-On as the sort of identifier, commercial node, and the Marysville commercial node along the highway there. And how residential fits best into that. We want to make sure that it is being integrated in a mixed use fashion so that it can help support the commercial amenities that are there, but also we don't want to impede commercial development. So really just taking a look at what that looks like in those nodes and areas. Sort of on the flip side of that, looking at home-based businesses and neighborhood commercial, just looking at what opportunities are there in terms of business development, small business development, and if there's any opportunities for providing more amenities within community, and what desire there is for that type of development moving forward. And then the final piece is looking at development permit area guidelines. So currently we have a few different development permit areas, but primarily we have the multi-unit residential. So because this is residential focused, we definitely do want to open that up and take a look at how we're moving projects through the development permitting process that are larger scale. So currently it's for 3 units or more is how we define multi-unit residential. Also, we do want to take a look at hazard-based development permit areas. So currently we do have in limited areas the wildfire development permit area as well as floodplain development permit areas. So we do want to take a look at those and see what opportunities there are to enhance those over time. So with the time constraints and thinking about time, I have detailed in the report the engagement work plan and timeline. So we're looking at hitting the ground running here, starting in April. So hopefully getting out to the community by the end of the month here with some initial surveys and some visioning processes just to update any of the vision statements that we have there, and then make sure that we're hearing from the community about what their concerns are and how we can best address those. During that process, we're also going to be looking to engage with special interest groups, with different levels of governance. So looking at the First Nations, both Ktunaxa and Akim communities, as well as the regional district, and then other municipalities nearby. So namely Cranbrook, but beyond as well. And really wanted to have those conversations of how we can align different policies and sort of help realize the best case scenarios for residents throughout these Kootenays. Following that initial round of engagement that we are looking to wrap up by June, so a pretty narrow window, we'll get down to policy writing and do the policy writing through the summer months so that we can bring back a draft for community review, council and community review in the early days of the fall months, so that we can get to the statutory process by the third quarter, the November, December months of the year, so that we can have the amendments ratified by the end of the year. So that's the quick overview of the proposed plan here. And yeah, if you have any questions, please.
Thank you very much, Justin.
Thank you.
We'll start with Councillor McBain and then go to Councillor Roberts.
First off, thanks, Justin, and welcome back. Good to see your face back here again. And yeah, excited to have you back on board. And I'm sure Troy's happy as well. This is, I think this is welcome news for all of us around here. I really think the opportunities to try to integrate or maybe optimize the commercial integration into residential areas is exciting. I mean, I look at just when I was a kid, you know, growing up in Townside, and I know it's still there, but, you know, having a little grocery store, you know, kind of intermixed within your residential zone is nice to have, and it supports a lot of these things that we talked about prior with walkability and those types of issues. I guess my question is, Justin, I really appreciate how you laid out the timeline here, and you guys are dealing with a very narrow window, and I appreciate that. Will there be some opportunity though to take additional feedback? I see like the industrial / commercial zoning is not going to be on the table, which I understand, but is there opportunity to, at least as you guys are going through and looking through the OCP, to kind of maybe flag some things, some of the feedback that we've heard over the last couple of years, which, you know, contentious as it may have been, there was a lot of good feedback within that. So just wondering if there's going to be some opportunity to at least flag things so that we can come back, and when we do open it up again, we're not starting from scratch.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great point. Sorry, through the mayor. That absolutely. We definitely recognize that, you know, the OCP at this point is coming on 10 years old, and so there is a sort of that longer range understanding of a need for a more thorough update to the OCP and zoning bylaws accordingly. We don't have that time in this time frame, but following the conclusion of this process, we will be looking back to council to give us direction on how to proceed with a more comprehensive update of the official community plan, or if there is maybe a secondary focus that we can give in that interim period before we do have the next required official community plan update, which isn't planned to be required by the province until 2030 is the next, the next review requirement. So I think that there is an option to definitely move some of those things forward within the next few years here at council's pleasure.
Perfect. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. Thank you. Thanks, Justin.
Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Justin. Nice to have you back. I really appreciated the read. It was really good to see that all lined up. And so now, but we are talking big picture here. So I have an ask. I want you to look at every single thing as though you could get rid of it. Let's see if we can streamline things so it isn't so cumbersome, so there aren't so many delays, so that people can come in here, do what they need to do and move on. The only complaints I ever hear are, why does it take so long? There's people writing books about this and why we're like this. So you put that edit hat on with you as you go through, especially when you get to the policy piece. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. Go ahead, Councillor McGuire.
Yeah, thanks for this, Justin, and I appreciate the direction you're taking it. I do have a curiosity though. Do you know whether the deadlines on this are extendable from the province? Is there any ability to extend this? Because with this tight window, you would think that they would have some compassion and maybe, allow us to actually do a proper review as opposed to slamming something through.
I think at this point in time, there's no indication of any extension windows or anything, but I guess as time progresses, maybe that'll become apparent. But I think for now, the expectation is that we stay on track and work towards getting this completed by the end of the year.
Is there any formal process of asking whether that's a possibility, or?
I haven't looked into it yet, but we certainly can. Yeah, but again, I think sort of related to Councilor McBain's questions or comments, there is, I think part of this exercise is going to have to be, what do we have to do this year and what can wait till the next review, whether that's the next full 2020 or 2030 review or an interim review of some sort. So we'll
yeah, I just want to make sure that we're doing it with value and actually
sure.
getting something out of this rather than just jumping through hoops.
That's a great question. I think we got an answer to that in June when they had the first deadline of the building bylaw, and it was rigid. So that's not to say that it might not change, but I wouldn't anticipate it. Councillor Fox, go ahead.
I just have welcome back, Justin. I just have a question about so it says here, page 2.3. So because of the deadline, staff are proposing a housing focused OCP and zoning review with other community planning issues deferred for a more comprehensive review of the OCP. I'm just curious, what might the other community planning issues we're deferring be?
So I think, simply put, all things parks and recreation, industrial, commercial, it would sort of be the quick way of stating that package. Any other policy that's not directly housing related, though, I think would be a fair comment as well.
Go ahead.
Is there and I don't know, none of us have a crystal ball, I don't know that you can answer this, but is there something that could be problematic by not addressing it? Just going that's a tomorrow problem, and then tomorrow comes and you're all like, meh, meh. Is there something that we kind of know, this one is triaged a little higher than everyone else? I don't know if you can even answer that.
Yeah, I
that's
don't know,
a weird thing,
not that
but-
we're aware of, I guess, at this
Yeah.
point, but yeah, as I mentioned before, as we're progressing along, there might be issues that we flag that maybe they're not part of the housing focused review, but we can, maybe it's more of a separate sub amendment or review on the side, I guess, that is maybe more urgent than being able to put off till next year or two or something. So
Yeah, thanks for that question.
One more
Councillor
point here.
Fox.
Sorry,
You
just had one more comment if that's okay.
go ahead, Justin.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, if there are any sort of urgent items that might come up that need an amendment to either the OCP or the zoning bylaws, that might come forward as any other type of amendment to the OCP or zoning bylaw would come forward as well. So if there is sort of a red flag issue, or I think a more likely scenario might be a site-specific application, that can absolutely be dealt with simultaneously as the rest of this is going through as well.
Yeah, I think we historically, like going back over the last 10 years, we've got about a half a dozen instances where we have done updates to the OCP based on exactly as you just said, specific things that have come up and required that amendment. Councillor Dunneback.
Yeah, just a quick question. I wonder with this housing planning, or is there a cap that we have for the amount of water and the amount of waste that we have at this moment? Is that taken into consideration at all? So we know how much we can grow with what we have, so we're not out of water and dumping it over the bank, so to speak. Some sort of datum, I don't know.
Yeah, and I think maybe Nick's here can speak to that maybe, but there is a separate project looking at water supply, and of course part of our our wastewater planning for the new plant and everything is all part of that, ensuring we have capacity for the growth that's required and anticipated. But yeah, that's all part of the kind of the crystal ball, if you will, trying to make sure that we have the lands and service lands available to accommodate the amount of housing and the type of housing that we need and require, and making sure that we have the water capacity and wastewater capacity to service that as well.
Did you want to make a comment, Nick? No, we're good. Justin?
And yeah, just additionally to that, we will definitely be working with all city departments as well to make sure that any of the policies that are being proposed are realizable at the end of the day, because I don't think that there's any use in putting forward policies that can't be implemented. So absolutely.
Right, awesome. Thanks for that, Councillor Dunneback. Further, council? Right, call the question then on was this all three readings? No, on the report. the direction from council. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Pardon me. Okay, the second item is comments on the community housing correspondence. And the first motion is that council receive the report entitled Comments on Community Housing Correspondence dated April 14th. Councillor McBain moves and Councillor Karen seconds. Go ahead, Troy.
Yes, thank you, Mayor McCormick. Yeah, so council may recall there was a letter received and considered at the January 13th meeting, and there was a resolution passed by council after considering that the matter be referred to staff to provide some comments and recommendations there. So we're finally getting to that. Apologize for the delay. It does tie in quite nicely, I think, with the housing focused OCP and zoning review conversation we just had. So there was three main recommendations in there. The first was to recommending council that they establish an expanded scope to the housing needs assessment to incorporate a wider array of data sources and data points there. So in that context, obviously we just had the interim housing needs report that was received at the December 9th meeting, and the next scheduled review for full housing needs report update is December 28th, following the next federal census of 2026. And I think the general response here is that certainly that review will allow for much wider review than the last interim housing needs report that was mandated by legislation. So we can make sure to expand the scope there, make sure there's other data points pulled in and considered as part of that wider review. And that being said, some of that information from the current needs report and any other available data, under this year's review, will be part of that consideration in that review. But for the wider, obviously, to kind of implement that wider review, we'll have to wait for the next more fulsome housing needs report review. The second recommendation there was around using the needs assessment to inform development of a comprehensive actionable housing strategy. similar to Crownbrook's recently released housing strategy and action plan. And again, here, I think that's part of what's I think in my view is kind of being mandated by the province here with their proactive planning requirements. They're kind of setting in place some mandatory initial zoning changes with small scale multi-unit housing, and then the mandated interim housing needs report update, and then forcing local governments to integrate those needs reports into their OCP and zoning bylaws to ensure that there's sufficient lands designated to support the required housing there. And I think, naturally, I think as part of that process, there'll be not just, policy and regulatory updates, but actions and strategies identified that, will hopefully help lead towards providing some of the housing that's maybe not being supplied under current conditions. The third recommendation from that letter that was previously reviewed was to establish a housing solutions working group or committee or task force to support accountability and implementation of the housing needs assessment findings and development of a comprehensive housing strategy. So again, in the current context of the narrow timeline we have for completing the OCP and the zoning review, we're recommending that we not at this time, that we don't create a working group or a committee at this time, just to make sure that we're able to focus on the review, but that essentially kind of defer that consideration for the future when we're doing the more full housing needs report and leading into the when we have more time, I guess, for the wider OCP and zoning review that ultimately would be required by December 2030. And the consideration of what that committee or group looks like in terms of reference and all that can be considered at a future point there. So there's also some background information in the staff report here just on the previous housing needs assessment reports that were completed. The initial one back in 2009 and the Affordable Housing Committee at the time, and the various work that they supported and provided advice to staff and council and the community on was really instrumental in leading towards the policies that we currently have in our OCP. And of course, there was again another legislatively required housing needs assessment report that was completed in 2021. That's still referenced and relevant today. And then which was quite helpful in informing the zoning amendments that happened in 2022. Justin also played a key part in which we had called our housing availability and affordability amendments. And then, of course, also led into the small scale housing amendments there. Yeah, and then that led us back into where we are today with the recently interim housing needs report and working towards the OCP and zoning reviews there. Leave it at that. If there's any other questions or comments there.
Thank you, Troy. Councillor Fox.
I just have a question about the working group committee task, whatever, because we had one and then we got rid of it, but it sounds like it was super effective. And I'm just wondering why we got rid of it. And I don't know that actually anyone can answer that, because it might be like a no one was here at that time thing, but I'm just wondering why we got rid of it.
Go ahead, Troy.
Yeah, I'm not sure there's one particular reason or even a really good explanation, but having been here and worked through that time and everything, I think you just kind of lost a little steam and energy. They, like I said, they lost. There was a bit of turnover in the membership, and just wasn't able to kind of maintain the energy that they had over the years, I guess, and it kind of petered out in the end. And I think different time as well. There's a little bit of a slowdown or a slower time in development and everything else. So, but yeah, that's probably the shortest explanation I can provide.
Councillor Cairns, go ahead.
Just to thank you for the fulsome response to the 3 points in the letter, and I think the responses are excellent. And I'm just keeping those 3 points from the letter kind of as touch points, but I think you've addressed them really well here. So thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, I'm going to call the question on receipt. And then we have a second motion to go through. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. And the second related motion is that council directs staff to respond to Kerry Wall specifically as representing the participants in the community housing conversation to ensure the participants are aware of the upcoming engagement opportunities relating to the 2025 housing focused OCP and zoning bylaws review project. Councillor Roberts moves and Councillor McBain seconds. Any further conversation? All those in favor? That motion is carried. All right, next up, we have the Regional District of East Kootenay referral. The motion on the floor is that council direct the manager of planning and sustainability to respond to the Regional District of East Kootenay bylaw referral as follows. Interests unaffected by the proposed bylaw. Mover, please. Councillor McGuire, thank you. And Councillor McBain seconds. We don't often get referrals from the RD. Go ahead, Troy.
Yes, thank you again, Mayor McCormick. Yeah, you're right. It seems few and far between sometimes, but I think this one was referred partially because it's just so close to the municipal boundary. It doesn't border, immediately adjacent, but not very far away from that northeastern boundary. Yeah, so we've wanted to make sure we brought this forward for council to confirm just kind of how we want to respond on this. We're recommending that interests are unaffected. We did give some thought to if this is borderline more of a sort of a urban development, I guess, but given the scale that it's quite a small project, a fairly small site. Well, it's a good sized site, but only a small portion of the site's really buildable or developable, suitable for development given the steep slopes and everything on the site and the proposed restrictions on other commercial expansion and development on the site. We're recommending that the city's interests are unaffected. I think in a different context, if there was a more substantial commercial or industrial component to that, we might suggest that maybe that's better intended within a municipal boundary where there's other services and supports for that. I think there's some we've pointed out some supporting statements in our OCP. There's some similar language in the Kimberley rural OCP around that as well, that just that they'll strive to kind of direct those more intensive commercial and industrial developments into the urban areas or the municipal boundaries. And yeah, so in this particular case, we think that the site constraints and the proposed limitations on the development overall results in really no major concerns from the city's perspective.
Thank you, Troy. Council, comments or questions? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Next up, we have the curbside recycling collection. It's a renewal of the working agreement with Recycle BC. Motion on the floor is that council approve the master services agreement and statement of work with Recycle BC for curbside recycling as in the attached report. Councillor McBain moves and Councillor Karen seconds. All right. Nick, are you going to speak to this?
And give you a quick briefing on it.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor McCormick. Yeah, so the reason for this report is the current agreement between Recycle BC and the City of Kimberley in regards to the curbside recycling collection will be expiring May 1st, 2025. It will require council's approval to renew the agreement to ensure for uninterrupted service. The city's curbside recycling program was implemented in 2021, and as far as we can tell, the program has received very high participation numbers and positive community feedback. And we believe that with that, we've noted that the residents have an ease of use and reliable collections schedule and has been reducing household waste overall. So in regards to that, we want to continue with this successful partnership with Recycle BC in supporting the city's environmental objectives, and this will highlight the value of accessible recycling services. With this proposed agreement, the renewal introduces several key improvements overall. A 10% increase in Recycle BC incentives from a $37.40 per household per year to $41 per household per year. The contamination threshold, which is an allowance for per household with items that they normally couldn't put into the bin. That allowance has gone from 3% to 5% overall for the community, which offers more flexibility for minor incidents without affecting any of the incentives that are paid out. Updates to align with the current recycling practices. So this, we're hoping, will has the potential for future of inclusion of flexible plastics in the future there, and streamlined reporting requirements. So they've kind of cut down a lot of the administrative burden that we've been seeing from the past. These changes with the increased provincial funding and the operational flexibility that they're bringing forward, aligning with the past agreement that we have currently been using. This we have seen is protecting the city's interest overall, and we are hoping to get that signed over. Yeah, thank you. If there's any questions.
Thank you, Ryan. Council, go ahead, Councilor McBain.
No questions. I just think it's, I'm glad that, I'm glad to see the participation rates as you referred to, Ryan, just, you know, anecdotally, visually driving around, you know, people are participating, and as you mentioned, it is making an impact on the footprint of just, you know, garbage that's thrown in the landfill every year. So I think it's a wonderful program, and I am more than happy to see this continue.
Thanks, Councilor McBain. Councilor Roberts, go ahead. Then Councilor McGuire.
Just a quick clarification. It indicates down below that the current contract is valid until August 30th, 26. A new vendor agreement will be required at that time. Is that a new vendor or a new agreement?
So currently we have an agreement with a contractor that collects our services, which is a GFL Environmental, and that contract will be expiring August 30th, 2026. So at that time, we will be looking for a new vendor to supplement that.
Okay.
So this agreement
In
is
addition
with,
to GFL or instead of? We don't know.
we don't know yet. It will go out for a bid, but this right here is for Recycle BC to continue that, this recycling program overall.
All right, thank you.
Councilor McGuire.
Yeah, just a comment and a question. Yeah, it's always nice to see efficiencies and reductions in what we're paying for a service. So it's nice to see this this increased incentive from BC. What are they called? BC Recycles. Recycle BC. And I guess my question is, you mentioned the successes of the program, and I'm curious whether the RDK or Recycle BC have any sort of metrics of, you know, an increase in diversion rates or anything like that with this, and then also with the composting program.
Thanks, Councillor McGuire. Great question. So yes, RDK does track every kilogram of waste that enters their facilities, and we do get those stats on a kind of as request basis. I don't have them offhand with me right now, but definitely something we can pull and bring back to a future meeting for information for all of Mayor and Council. Yeah.
Go ahead, Councilor Dunneback.
No, you said a contractor. Does it have to be a contractor, or have we looked into purchasing our own truck to do this job to keep it kind of all in the family rather than paying a contractor to do a job essentially that city staff does already? Just a thought.
Thanks, Councilor. Go ahead, Nick.
Thanks, Councillor Dunneback. Again, a great question. That will be something we're evaluating as the contract expires and we go back out to market of what makes more sense, both financially and operationally overall. But it is a consideration that we can look at. As you mentioned, we do have 2 trucks already. We self-perform on the garbage and the organics side of things, so it wouldn't be a huge jump to go over there, but obviously it comes with capital expenses and these other things we need to consider.
How would that impact the sale or the disposal of the recycles? I mean, they have to go to somebody who's actually going to sell them or do something with it. That's all part of the contract, is it not?
Yeah, so part of that agreement that we're renewing right here designates our there's a specific name for it, but the local recycling facility, and that's GFL in Cranbrook, that we would have to bring all that collected recycling to.
All right, thanks. Further, council? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. All right, we have no correspondence this evening. We'll do a quick roundtable on any of the councillor matters. Councillor Cairns, I think you had an update for us.
Or I can just mention that the Nature Park Society, they have communication ongoing with the Ministry of Water, Land and Resource Stewardship on their nature park management plan. And they are issuing a tender currently for invasive species management, which is a requirement under the city's nature park license with the province. And that there is also, they also have collaboration underway with the Chamber and the Kimberley Trail Society and other organizations on an assessment of the economic impact of trails and future opportunities. And they also held a great fundraising film event last week. So that's a little update from the Nature Park Society. Thanks.
Busy time. Thanks for that, Councillor Cairns. Further, council, anybody? Go ahead, Councillor Dunneback.
Yeah, the Kimberley Underground Mining Railroad Society has been working hard to clear the tracks to take out a bunch of people for the AKBLG. So we're excited to have that
Awesome.
happen.
This coming weekend.
Yeah, we've been working hard on getting all the snow off the tracks and make sure everything's safe. So
Excellent.
Yeah,
Thank
it's
you for
great.
that. Okay, we have two items to deal with in camera this evening. Could I have a mover to go in camera? Councillor McBain, thank you. Councillor Dunneback seconds. All those in favor? The motion is carried. 2 minutes and we will hit the agenda. Thanks, folks, for being here tonight. See you, Jack. Thanks for being here. Thanks, Ryan.
Who's looking after that? Big problem.
That's what I thought.
No question, period.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think the question for you is grossly overrated anyway. The only people who've ever spoken up, only